Julian Assange. For some, he is an international hacker, a world famous one at that. For others, he's a journalist, one who exposed war crimes and wrote about US military exploits in various countries. You're watching Viewpoint. I'm Afrida. Julian Assange is now going to be a free man. He is going to plead guilty for a single criminal count in a US court in northern Mariana Island in a place called Sapiana. So here's the backstory. For the last 5 years, Julian Assange was in Belmarsh prison in the United Kingdom. Prior to that, he had sought asylum and he was in the Ecuadorian embassy in Britain for a very long period of time. During that period, he even had 2 children with his partner. In 2022, he got married to his partner as well. Now, the story begins in 2006 when Julian Assange launched WikiLeaks. He rose to prominence around 2010-2011 after he made stunning disclosures of secret US military documents or classified documents. One of the first things that drew attention was his disclosure about a US helicopter in 2007 killing Iraqi civilians during the US-Iraq war. Following that, a series of documents exposing a number of war crimes, military excesses was posted on WikiLeaks. So this obviously angered the United States. Now, parallelly, what had happened is in 2010, Julian Assange came under investigation for a sexual crime. 2 of WikiLeaks employees, Swedish employees, made allegations of sexual crimes against Julian Assange. So a Swedish court then extended a request for extradition to the UK, where he was based out of. That extradition did not work out. That particular criminal investigation did not meet its logical end for want of investigation. So he was absolved in that case. But in the meanwhile, the United States had pressured UK for extradition of Julian Assange. He managed to get asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy. So for a long period of time, he remained there in the Ecuadorian embassy until his asylum was revoked. And then he was arrested. He was sent to Belmarsh prison in 2019. For the last 5 years, he's been there. Finally, now what has happened is a law deal has been worked out between the lawyers of Julian Assange and the US authorities. He is now going to plead guilty for 1 criminal count of violating the US espionage laws, and therefore he will now be required to serve 62 months in jail, a period that he has already served in confinement. And therefore, that is how Julian Assange now becomes a free man after he struck this deal. Now, for this, he would of course have to appear in this court. This is an interesting way of doing it. He will appear in court in Sapiana, which is a place in North Mariana Island, closer to Australia. That is where Julian Assange comes from. He has to appear in a US district court. Therefore, this place was carefully chosen. Remember, the fear was that there would be a way to manipulate an extradition to United States. To avert all of that, this particular location has been chosen. This district court has been chosen, which is US territory, but it is not exactly a US state. So he will appear in this court and he will plead guilty. Following that, a sentence of 62 months of course, that comes with this sort of a crime will be pronounced. And since this sentence has already been served, Julian Assange will walk free. It's a very interesting story of many twists and turns. If you look at the WikiLeaks Twitter page, their official social media handles, they talk about how here is somebody who fought for the freedom of press, for the freedom of speech, and he was unfairly detained, unfairly kept behind bars. Julian Assange also had 2 children while he was a prisoner. In fact, during the time that he was in the Ecuadorian embassy is when he met his partner Stella. He got married in 2022, even though he had his children before that. So now, of course, Julian Assange will be reunited with his family, his children who only have known him as a prisoner. But what is absolutely interesting here is the way this man has managed to get out of the clutches of law. He managed to avert the US extradition. His lawyers pleaded that he is under severe health conditions conditions that do not permit him to serve term in a US jail, and owing to that, a lot of points about humanitarian grounds were raised in the back and forths that happened legally, and finally it was agreed upon that he will plead guilty and he will appear in a district court, a US district court. The location, like I said, very carefully chosen. So that precisely is the story of Julian Assange. For some, he is a criminal, an international hacker. For others, he could be somebody who fought for the freedom of speech.